Hey, Brian Zach here with you. So the other day, I'm on the phone with a new student of mine, and we were discussing many facets of drumming and just sharing stories and just kind of getting to know each other a bit, which is something I like to do with my new students. Kind of figure out where they're coming from, what their background is, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and that sort of thing. So here we are, we're talking on the phone, and the subject of in-ear monitors creeps into the conversation. And he was telling me what his in-ear monitor mix is. Essentially, he says he has the bass player pretty hot. He had the lead vocals singing in his ears so he can hear where he is in the song, and all of that makes sense. But then he said something that really shocked me. And that was that the only thing from his drum kit that he has in his in-ear monitor mix is the kick drum. And I was like, whoa, hang on a second. Did I just hear you right? The only thing you have in your in-ear monitor mix is kick drum from the drums? Like, for instance, you don't have any overhead mics in the mix, or snare drum, hi-hat, tom mics, nothing? No, he said, just kick. This was a shocking revelation to me. Revelation, that's not a good word for it. This was just shocking. This was a shocking statement to me. And I had to explain to him, hey, look, that's probably not a good idea. You should at least have some overheads from your overhead mics, have some of that signal sent into your in-ears, because really you're there playing the drums with in-ear monitors, like molded in-ear monitors, so you're completely isolated from the room sound that you're making. In other words, you put those in-ear monitors in, it's like wearing earplugs, or even like more extreme than that sometimes, depending on how your fit is. But you essentially can't hear the cymbals, and you can't hear the transients of the stick hitting the drum head. And how are you going to hear your tone? How are you going to play with any sort of dynamics or touch? All of that will be out the window if all you have in your monitor mix is kick drum. Now, sure, kick drum is important to have in your mix. I usually have that probably one of the loudest things in my mix, but I also have every other mic pretty much. I would say 99% of the time, I have every mic dialed into my in-ear mix. And I try to start with the kick drum and the snare and the hat. And because those are the three voices that you're going to use the most in any sort of contemporary rock, pop, country sort of situation where you're playing beats and grooves most of the night. But also, don't overlook the power of the overhead mics, because the overhead mics are where you're getting a true picture, a true snapshot picture of the drum kit and the balance of the drum kit. For instance, if all I have is kick, snare, and hat in my in-ear mix, and the hat mic is turned up too loud, the whole kit is going to sound way out of balance. Your grooves are going to sound out of whack, and the hi-hat mic is just going to be like blaring in your ears, and that's not a good thing. You don't want that. But let's say I'm in a sound check and I start dialing in my mix, either myself with, sometimes you have the app and you can do it online through Wi-Fi, through your phone, or through your iPad, or if there's a monitor engineer or just a regular front of house guy or girl that you're working with who's also doing your monitor mixes. In any situation, this will work. Dial in your kick drum first. Get that to a comfortable level. Then, before any other mics, dial in your overheads. Dial in the overhead mics, because those overhead mics, usually you have two, usually they're in stereo. And if you have a stereo mix, great. But even if your mix is mono, it won't matter, because you're looking for a picture of the kit overall. You want the snare and the tom and the cymbals and the floor tom and everything, anything that you're hitting, you want that to sound balanced, like it does when you're playing in the room without any mics. So this is kind of it's a fail-safe. This way you don't dial in so much toms and close mics, and then when it comes time to get the overheads into your in-ears, everything's way too loud because you're already dialed in too much of the close mics, and you're getting too much of it. You put the overhead mics into your mix, and now everything is just all jumbled up, and it's just a big mess, and you've got nothing but drums in your whole mix. It's way too much. So start with the kick, and then move to your overhead mics, and dial in your mix with those 2 or 3 mics. So you have the kick and the 1, 2 overhead, or maybe it's just a kick and 1 overhead. Either way is fine. And then move on to your close mics, the snare, the hat, the toms. Now, I'm going to give you another scenario where it's pretty commonplace, actually. If you're playing clubs and you're playing the club scene, especially when you're playing any club that has a house drum kit, we have a lot of these here in Nashville. You get to the stage, you set up your gear, there's a house kit, you bring your cymbals, you set up your cymbals, you're all done setting up. There's mics on the toms, there's close mics, but there's no overhead mic. So you have a kick, you have a snare, you have a tom mic, maybe a rack tom and a floor tom. There's no hi-hat mic, and there's no overhead mic. Now, you're using in-ears. Let's say you're going to use in-ears on this gig. So the only information that you're going to get to your ears and to your in-ear monitor mix is from the close mics. And you're not going to have any top end of the kit. In other words, you're not going to have any cymbals. You're not going to have any high frequency type sounds because there's no overhead to pick those up, because all you're getting is the close mic, high proximity sound coming from those close mics into your in-ears. This is not a good way to play either. I'll tell you why. When you don't have an overhead mic and you do have close mics on the drums, you're hearing the drums through your in-ears, but you're not hearing the cymbals or the hats. What's going to happen is you're going to end up playing the cymbals and the hats much, much louder than you normally would if you didn't have this scenario set up. If you didn't have the mics on the drums, and let's say you were just playing acoustically, or if you did have overhead mics. Now, hopefully I'm not getting too convoluted here. Hopefully you're following me. So the idea is when you don't have overhead mics, you're not hearing the cymbals through your in-ears. So in order to compensate, you're going to play the cymbals louder because you're hearing the drums, you're hearing the kick, the snare, the toms through your in-ears, and those are loud and clear, boy. But when it comes time to hit the cymbal and the crash and the ride and whatever else cymbals you're playing, you're going to be playing those cymbals so much louder, trying to match the level of the drums that you're hearing in your ears. So 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, you're going to sound really out of balance. Your whole kit is going to sound out of balance. All of your playing in general is going to sound out of balance because you're playing the cymbals much louder than you normally would if you could hear them properly. And the other thing that's going to happen is over time, you're probably going to start breaking cymbals because you're hitting the cymbals so darn hard, harder than you normally would or have to hear them. So you're hitting these cymbals so darn hard, and what's going to happen is the cymbals you shouldn't be hitting the cymbals that hard. The cymbals don't need to be played that hard. You can hear the cymbals already without playing them loud. If you think about how hard you hit a floor tom or a snare drum rim shot on a backbeat, and then if you play the cymbals the same way, you don't need to. The cymbals don't need to be played that loud. Trust me, okay? So where am I going with all this? I have found a way around this. And this is something that you can do too. So what I did was I went out and I bought a cheap large diaphragm condenser microphone. Now you could make it a small diaphragm. In fact, that would be probably even better because it's easier to carry around and it's less weight and what have you. But this microphone, I bought this for 50 bucks. This is an MXL Drum Cube Pro. I bought this used for 50 bucks. And I quite love it because it is a large diaphragm condenser. So it does pick up a lot of low end. Yeah, I'll show it to you. All right. And another reason I like this microphone is because of this here. It comes with its own mic. It doesn't need a mic clip. So this bit here just screws right into a mic stand. So no clip needed. So if there's an extra mic stand anywhere on stage, I don't need a clip even. Just take, and if there is a clip, you just take it off and you screw this into the mic stand directly, and voila, you have an instant overhead mic. Now, the way I do this usually and present this to the sound man or woman, sound person, is as I'm setting up, I'll casually tell them what I need, from the mics and from a mix, and hey, send me an XLR cable, and hey, if I need a vocal mic, I might mention that as well. But I'll also mention, and I'll take note ahead of time, oh, there's no overhead mic. I don't see any mics set up. There's no lines run, etc. So I will, as politely as possible, ask the sound person, hey, I brought this mic. It really helps me out to have this set up as an overhead mic. Can I use that stand over there? And you can bring a cable. Sometimes I bring a cable also because sometimes they don't even have cables. And so that's another issue. So bring a mic, bring a cable. But oftentimes they have cables. They have extra cables around the stage, spares and whatnot. And more often than not, as long as you're polite and you respectful and just ask, don't demand, don't make any demands, just ask, hey, is it cool if I set up this mic I brought here from home? I use it as an overhead and it helps me to play the cymbals a lot lighter. It gives me a much better picture of the kit through my in-ears. And what I do is I try to paint the picture to make it easier for them to mix the band. So I'll say, this really helps me play the cymbals a lot lighter and it allows me to play with greater dynamics and musicality, and it'll make your job a lot easier too. And I say, you're more than welcome to use this mic in your mix, in the front of house mix, but really I'm just asking if I can use it for my monitor, for my own personal use. And the other thing is, even if they have no channels left, which could happen, some of these clubs, they don't have, a lot of channels that they're working with, but I'll have my little personal mixer next to me and I have an open channel there where I can plug this mic into. So it won't even hit the front of house in that case. It won't even hit the desk. So it'll just go straight from the mic into my in-ear monitor rig, which is a small little Mackie mixer, like a little 4-channel mixer. And I have an extra channel there, XLR, so I can plug this directly into that as well. So this is the answer, is just bringing a cheap, it doesn't have to be this mic. It can be any mic. It can be a SM57. It can be a $50 used knockoff mic. I recommend a large diaphragm condenser or a small diaphragm condenser. I guess if I were to do it again, I'd probably go with a small diaphragm condenser. Lewitt makes some really amazing, tiny little small diaphragm condensers. The mic company Lewitt, Lewitt, and they're fairly cheap. I think you can get 2 of them for probably $300 or less even. So, I mean, it's not that cheap, but it's not as cheap as $50 is. But that's why, like, I bring this. It's $50. Like I said, I don't have that way. I don't have to worry about it getting knocked over, or if I leave it behind, or who knows what could happen. But honestly, this really goes a long way for being able to hear myself properly and play, and makes the night or the evening or the performance go so much better this way, because I can hear myself, and now I can hear my cymbals, and I'm not breaking my cymbals. I know I can play with confidence that my playing is dynamic and it's balanced and it's musical and it just works. In times past when I've set this mic up and I've, through the front of house person, through the person who's running sound, at the end of the performance, I've had sound people come up and tell me, hey, that's a great idea, because I actually ended up using the mic in my mix a little bit and it helped. So it's just a great way to go about getting your in-ear mix, getting your in-ear mix to be what it needs to be for you to do your job at the best level that you can possibly. So you got to just help yourself. So go out, get yourself a little microphone and just throw it in your bag. And remember, just be polite and respectful, and it should work out for you. So let me know if this, if this is a great idea, if what do you think of this idea? If you have any other suggestions. I want to add, I think the last time I used this microphone was a club downtown, and they didn't actually have any tall boom mic stands that they could boom out over the drum kit. But they did have one of the short stands that are on a boom mic. And so I said, hey, let's just use this small mic stand. We put the mic on the stand and we just put it in front of the kit, almost kind of like how I do at home here in the studio with my crotch mic, which here, I'll show you real quick. We put it sort of over the kick drum, and again, it just helped so much because it's just picking up all that nice high frequency information from the snare, from the hats, from the cymbals, even the toms. If you're playing the rims, you can hear those. There's nothing worse than playing your drums and just not being able to hear them. I mean, it's crazy to think that people do that. You practice so hard on your technique, on your tone, on getting a good sound and your balance. You want to bring that to the stage with you. So, yeah, that's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget I have a Patreon page. Please join me. If you're feeling generous, join me at patreon.com/BrianZach. I have tons of videos like this on there, all sorts of content and information and drum lesson videos, instructionals, breakdowns, gear reviews, rig rundowns, etc., etc. Over 100 pieces of content and constantly growing. So please join me there. I hope you will. And yeah, that's it. Thanks again. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much. Hey, Brian Zach here with you. So I've discussed this concept online. Cut that. Take two. Hey, Brian Zach here with you. So I've discussed this topic before online multiple times. Take three. Hey, Brian Zach here with you. So I've discussed this topic before online, but it's worth mentioning again because it kind of keeps coming up with people asking me questions about what my in-ear mix is like, and it just, oh, take 3, take 4. Hey, Brian Zach here with you. So today's discussion, nope, today's discussion, fuck you. Okay, take 5. Hey, Brian Zach here with you. So the other day, I'm on the phone with a new student of mine, and we were discussing in-ear monitor mixes. And why am I looking over there? I'm looking, you're right there. Take 6.